Oi, oi, alright, how's it going? I'm Grant, you're you. This is Doodle Review coming through with a new album to chat fraff about and tell you if I like it or not, really. If you've been following this channel for a bit, you know that we always have an eye on what's going on in the world of alternative or punk or garage-based guitar rock, and so I had to dedicate some time to talk about this. Three Bells, Ty Segall's 15th album that dropped in late January. Ty Segall is a garage rock guitar savant emerging from California in the late 2000s. In the early days of his career, he was actually taken under the wing of fellow but slightly older garage psych rocker John Dwyer of the OCs, putting out Segall's first record on his Castleface label. Since then, as I said up top, the guy has been a force of non-stop music, releasing 15 albums under his own name in addition to releases with other projects like CIA, Fuzz, Wasted Shirt, Gogs and more. My first experience in Segall's world was the 2017 self-titled record, which introduced me to his brand of Groundhog's garage psych meets Mark Bolan T-Rex glam. The 7 years since then has been an interesting period for the Sonic Explorer. The 6 albums have come out under his name in that time. 3 of them, including that self-titled Freedom's Goblin and Harmonizer, took things in a conventional, for Ty, garage rock focused direction, while First Taste gave us krautrock-esque synth explorations, and 2022 Hello Hi, his last record, was a predominantly acoustic affair. Three Bells, arriving this January past, actually made 2023 a rare full calendar year without a Segall release. Three Bells returns thematically to that core garage rock psychedelic sound of albums like Harmonizer and the self-titled, and matches Freedom's Goblin in its expansive scope at 15 tracks and 65 minutes. Goblin has always been a favourite record for me despite its length, which is normally a turn-off, and it still actually has the record as the longest Segall release at 19 songs and 75 minutes long, but with its dynamic track listing, great pacing and some of the best riffs and strongest melodies of the guitarist's career, its power is undeniable. Three Bells in some ways shares a spirit with this record, a really clear mission or mandate from the artist to achieve a certain goal and to basically not finish the album until that goal is obtained, whatever the runtime. Whereas Freedom's Goblin's stated goal was to really seek out as many stylistic variations within Segall's corner of garage rock, taking the listener on detours through disco, folk and funk, Three Bells' goal is much more singular, with Segall looking to mine as much music from one single concept, a concept I'll loosely call repetition and ripping, either repeating these small ascending or descending guitar riffs or writing guitar lines where the notes are just being ripped from the guitar neck with crazy pitch bends. Sometimes both of those things happen at once. So many tracks, let's take I Hear as an example, build a song around Segall, really, it seems, absolutely pushing the limits of how far one note or one string can be bent from the instrument's neck. As a result, with the repetition in particular, this album has a much more robotic kind of feel than recent straight up rockier albums in the catalogue. It also bears the hallmarks of an album created by an artist with a single bloody-minded vision, the mad genius kind of alone in his lab. The genius part of that is unquestionable, but the madness, I think, comes through in the lack of filter or the reduced capacity of other bandmates that might have made a good sounding board for certain ideas. Freedom's Goblin's success feels as though it came from its stylistic variety, but also I think it was healthy creative input from the Freedom band. And I notice on Three Bells that only around a third of the tracks list co-writers, and while not a solid rule, the overall trend I see is that these songs seem to be the most concise, or they offer slightly more dynamic arrangements to keep the listener engaged with this repetition and ripping theme. I don't think it's a coincidence that one of my favourite tracks on the album is the track Void, the earliest example of the collaborative songwriting really paying off. On this track, all of the compositional themes of the album are present. There is an eerily repetitive acoustic picked sequence which is overlaid with other instruments picking out these slightly off-colour notes. You get the feeling that the higher pitch chimes that come in might have been represented by shredded pitch bent guitar notes in another world, but the substitution for a keyboard in this one instance achieves the same goal but keeps the track fresh next to its sister tracks either side. As the song progresses, we get this trippy dissonant section where it feels like the walls are caving in before giving way to another phase of the song with a straightforward chord progression that builds, allowing Segall then to deploy his super fuzzed out pitch bent soloing, which feels climactic and cool. The next track I hear kind of typifies what I mean about the mad genius pursuing this one idea, with the shrieking, shredded pitch bent notes forming the basis of the entire tune. It's not a bad track by any means, it's got some really cool parts, but those ripping notes make such an impression. They seem to create a listening experience where, when this technique comes up later in the album, it almost lessens the impact of the song it's in. Eggman or My Room, for instance, the latter being one of my favourites, at points feature those guitar strings getting dragged into the next century, and it strikes such a similar sonic tone you're almost fatigued by it, and it kind of lessens the impact of a great track like My Room in the context of the wider album. There are, of course, plenty of things to enjoy about the record though. Heidi D, a track where Segall gets the sole writing credit, featuring both the repetition and the ripping, so completely bucking the trend of my theory from earlier, is super seductive with its slinky riffs, great bass groove and Segall's hooky falsetto. On the topic of the bass, I love how at certain points on the album, this track in particular, you can hear how the low end has been captured with the guitar being tracked through like a fuzzy amp and either a DI or a clean amp at the same time, with the blend creating a perfect garage rock concoction. Other highlights for me include the intriguing chord progression of the opening track, The Bell, that slowly opens up to different rhythms, and of course solos, as well as the atmospheric and well-paced The Watcher. Danae is probably one of the best explorations of repetition on the album, with the song built around and expanding upon a simple scale, sung initially by Segall in a way that sounds like kind of a vocal warm-up and eventually crescendoing into fuzzed out guitar freakiness and some of the coolest drums on the record. This is an album where Segall is definitely mining for gold, fixated on this concept of repetition and pushing the guitar, and listening to him do this can be both challenging and extremely rewarding. I'm giving this a solid 6. Personally, I think a bit more ruthless editing on both arrangements and song inclusions, with a few tweaks to the overall sequencing, could have led to a stronger final result, but what we have is no doubt enjoyable and includes some great Segall tracks to add to his vast legacy. So check this out if you liked, or if you like this, check it out. Katoilo Ayoko, the acronym that gets better every time. If I could include one Ty Segall album in this, I'd have to say Freedom's Goblin. Segall has a large body of work that can feel intimidating, and if Three Bells happens to be your first, I definitely recommend getting on this album, and if it's not, this is your sign just to revisit it. Secondly, when you're talking Ty Segall, I think you've got to pay your dues to the Groundhogs, a band often forgotten but who clearly loom large among the Californian guitarist influences. Their album Thank Christ for the Bomb is a good one to start with. On a more contemporary note, I think you could draw some comparisons with Dean Fertita's project Tropical Goth Club. The songs are a little more conventional on that record than what we have here, but there's definitely a shared kind of scuzzy garage rock sensibility. And for guitarists really exploring the possibilities of their instrument, maybe you could also look at Jack White's Boarding House Reach. Alright, it's time for me to knock it on the head though. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're messing about with the clicks and taps and all of that jazz down there, press the subscribe button. I'm sure it's kicking about down there. Subscribe, share some thoughts, show some love, or just hurl some abuse in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers mate, bye.